part 2. So temperance, yeah, we were here, then we weren't, now we're back. So the alchemical cauldron of Caragwin, or the temperance card. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't send it around. There we go. Okay, next up, the devil. And I've been curious who would be the devil in this deck, and they chose Salome. And she's naked and in the midst of a very erotic dance, and she's holding the head of John the Baptist on a platter. She's sort of caressing it behind her. It's being held by a centurion. In the background, there's a lavish feast. In the foreground, there's pots of gold pouring out. And so it shows sort of a scene of decadence in which Salome is depicted. So let's find out what they're saying about Salome. Sometimes I think she gets a little bit of a bad rap. If I were in her shoes, you know, I can't tell if I would be pressured into making that kind of a request. But Herod was quite he was quite an upstart in the ancient world and quite a character. So it shows Herod and her mother are feasting and watching. Salome dances, her body gyrates seductively. Salome performs the dance of the 7 veils, and all that remains to cover her now is a thin red veil, dangerously close to falling away. And in this depiction, she has asked for the head of John the Baptist on a silver plate. Actually, it's her mother who asked for the head of John the Baptist, Herodias, on a silver plate, a manipulative request that relegates Salome to a mere pawn in Herodias's plans. As the head of John the Baptist is brought in, still dripping with blood, Salome kisses his cold lips. And here's what it says. Here's something they have to say. The devil is a card well known to most readers before they pick up a tarot deck, and the notoriousness of this figure has retained its original traditional name, which I think is interesting. Consider they changed a lot of the other names in the deck, but the devil is the devil, and death is death, no matter what we call them. In this card, all the ties that bind are found. Every commitment, every manipulation, every oath and bond that we forge is found in the hands of the devil, who holds those chains tightly. In some ways, it is a card about being trapped, seeking liberation, but being unable to achieve it. It's also an acknowledgement and acceptance of the inner demons of the self, the traits, desires, fears, and hopes that society deems to be unsavory, dark, or wrong. The devil card is the home of vice and all manner of temptation. It is also the card of manipulation and power over others. And so it talks about how the story of Salome has sort of, she's been the one who sort of took the rap and became the scapegoat, or you know, that John the Baptist became the scapegoat, but that she also sort of took the rap for that, when in fact it was her mother and father. Our next one is the Tower. So we know that the Tower is often about death, change, sudden loss, sudden transformation, feeling like things kind of come out of the blue, feeling like institutions crumble. And who do we have here? None other than the Orisha of the storm, Oya. And interestingly, you know, in Isheshe, Oya is not the ruler of the cemetery the way she's been depicted in the more recent interpretations. Oya is the guardian of the marketplace and change. But in this time period now, and particularly in the West, her association with the cemetery has been highlighted in the original tradition, there's another Orisha who is the guardian of the cemetery. But Oya is also known as the mother of the rainbow and the mother of 9 children. She's the bringer of lightning. She's wielding the machete of her partner Shango in this card, and this machete, she's using it, you know, to stir up the winds. So she is here bringing the winds of change and transformation, and certainly that awareness that we have to give something up in order to grow. The next card is the star. And the star card, for the star card, they've chosen the Ushas, or Ushas. It might just be one name. Let's look, let's find out. There are some really interesting choices in this deck that I'm finding exciting because they're not the usual suspects. So Ushas, in the golden sunrise of a new day, Ushas, the Vedic Hindu goddess of dawn, oh, I see, dances her way across the sky. Her skirts and veil sweep yellows, pinks, and blues across the stars, and her hair becomes the sun-tinted clouds. Under her wondrous gaze, humans awaken. In her name, holy men begin their first religious acts of the day. With her blessing, householders draw the first milk from their cattle, and in her light, hope dawns in the soul. And she's praised in the Atharva Veda, the Griya Sutras, and the Rig Veda, as well as other early Hindu texts. The authors of these Vedic hymns to Ushas speak as people who had woken from a frightful night terror, or who had toiled through the darkness to reach the forgiving and peace-bringing light. The authors of the Rig Veda did not wish upon the first star they saw at night, but rather on the star of morning that they saw upon awakening. And here's a translation from the Rig Veda. O dawn, enriched with ample wealth, bestow on us the wondrous gift wherewith we may support children and children's sons. Thou radiant mover of sweet sounds, with wealth of horses and of kine, shine thou on us this day, O dawn auspiciously, O dawn enriched with holy rites, yoke to thy car thy purple steeds. And Ushas is described as a beautiful young woman who has been dressed by her mother with love so that all may see her adornments and splendor, and she is lovelier than the dawn that has gone before her. Fair as a bride embellished by her mother, thou showest forth thy form that all might see it. Blessed art thou, O dawn, shine yet more widely. No other dawns have reached what thou attainest. So after the traumas and terrors in the major arcana, it's always nice to get, when we get through all of that, hanged man and death and the devil, it's really nice to get to the star, isn't it? Just like, oh, finally the star. And I think this is a wonderful depiction of that dawn star, the morning star, where you can make your wish. That's where you place your wishes and your hopes. Can't believe it, only a few more to go. The moon is Morgane Le Fay. I had a feeling she might show up, the magic woman. And here she is, a triple moon above her, suggesting the triple goddess. She is holding a shawl around her and hiding her face as she goes forth. It shows her with a babe at her breast. It shows an old woman above, and I'm wondering if that old woman above her is also her form, if this is her form as a triple goddess. So let's have a look. I'll find out. The moon, Morgane Le Fay. So it shows the swampy lowlands of Avalon, where she meets, where the once fairy Morgan Le Fay embraces hidden things in darkness, nurturing secret histories and desires. So yes, all three of these forms are her. She has variously been portrayed as a beneficent healer, a fairy, a goddess, a sorcerer, a poisoner, an incestuous lover, a maiden giving herself secretly to a lover, a hag, a queen, a necromancer, and a shapeshifter. So just like the moon conveys the depth of mystery and that there's a great unknowable, so too does Morgan Le Fay, Morgan the fairy, convey all of these things in one. And there's some great quotes that are included in here from the Geoffrey of Monmouth's Vita Merlini, which was written in 1150. And it talks about Morgan, the view of Morgan as a woman and how it influenced Sir Thomas Malory when he wrote La Morte d'Arthur. So a lot of history is what they're describing here about her. And they've really done their homework. There's a lot of citations in this book where they've kind of looked into the history of these characters. And particularly, there's a tremendous amount of work that's been done on the Arthurian legends, and it looks like a great deal of it's been included there. So now we're at, oh my gosh, we can't believe it. We only have 3 more to go. Is there a bonus card? No, it's not. Okay, the sun. So they've chosen, and this is a great choice, and I think a choice many of us really would understand, Amaterasu, the Japanese solar goddess, and remembering the story that Amaterasu was so devastated by her brother that she hid in a cave and she refused to shine her light. And it took her sister, Ame no Usume, to come and dance around and do a kind of a Baobo-esque dance. And then that made Amaterasu smile once more and bring her son out from behind the cave wall. So here she's depicted shooting her light. She's actually in the cave, but she shoots her light out of the cave and onto the mirror, and then from the mirror her reflection becomes the sun, with this classical depiction of the rising sun, very similar to other Asian art that we see, East Asian art that we see. So around comes Amaterasu. Now their judgment card, they've renamed to Rebirth, and they've chosen Inanna, and this depiction of Inanna is rising goddess-like out of a broken mortal body and is rising completely in radiance and unearthly light as probably Ereshkigal looks on. I'm presuming that's who that is. So there's this body that's been, you know, in the classical mythology, Ereshkigal hangs Inanna on a hook. In this, they've depicted her body as being kind of pinned with knives. But either way, then Inanna rises and she's reaching for this light above her, and her 8-pointed star, which is also kind of a symbol of creation, is at her center. And for a rebirth judgment card, life after death card, the myth of Inanna makes a lot of sense. And finally, the last card in the Pistis Sophia deck, I can't believe we've already made it through, is the Universe Newt. And here she is in her starry form with the lights above her that depict the planets, but also depict the elements coming into form. She herself is formless and yet celestial, and beneath her is a figure in a coffin. And this signifies that the end, and around her, all of the astrological symbols as well as the classical symbols of the tarot that we would see in a Pamela Coleman Smith world card: the human, the bull, the lion, and the eagle. There's also some soul bird carrying the soul of the deceased person. And it seems very interesting, and no mistake, that the coffin is kind of got a phallic look to it, and it's right between her legs, and the soul bird is flying up above that, and then it's all the action is happening between her legs here, because it really is that when we're dying in this life, we're born into the next world. And so there's that aspect as well, that there's life in the midst of change. A good message. So we'll pass around Newt. So we're going to do a spread with these cards, and we're going to get a message and see what we need to know for this next month. This next month is not the most intense month of the year, I hope, but you just never know with 2020 being the way it is. What we're going to do today is we're going to do a reading that I call As Above, So Below. It's a 7-card reading, 3 cards on the top, 4 cards on the bottom, so that it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 4 cards on the bottom represent 4 messages about our earthly existence, and the 3 cards on top represent messages from the divine. So what we're going to do today for this reading, I've brought my good old-fashioned Rider-Waite. Well, it's the original tarot. It's not called the Rider-Waite, but it is the Pamela Coleman Smith drawings. We're going to use this Rider-Waite deck for our 4 earthly messages, and we're going to choose 3 Pistis Sophia cards for our celestial cosmic messages.
Oh, that's fun.
Won't that be fun? And then we'll kind of see, like, over this next month, who are the goddesses, guardians, guides, and mythologies that can help us make sense of what's going on down here. So I'm going to say my prayer. Great Mother, Holy Mother, wise and gentle Mother, abundant and loving Mother, protective and healing Mother, I call to you. I'm here today with our Tea and Tarot group, and together we're seeking information and guidance about this coming month and messages that we need to know, things that will be important for us at this time of change. And we call upon all the benevolent ancestors, guardians, and guides who walk through this life with us. We ask you to be here now and to guide this reading. We come to this reading together today with courage and strength, honesty and integrity, love, compassion, and gratitude for the journey of life. And may what we learn here today be of benefit to our group, and turning outward, may what we learn here today in some way, great or small, also be of benefit to the entire universe. For the Tea and Tarot group. So I'm going to have each of the ladies here pick one of our goddess cards. Okay, you're going to pick the first one. No pressure. And don't look at it yet. They are. These are very high quality cards, and they have a very thick stock. So you might think you're holding 2 cards when you're only holding 1. And so Christine's picked the 3rd of our goddess cards. So I'm going to set those here. And then I will pick our bottom cards. Just right off the top. Okay, so now go ahead, Anka, and give me your card. We'll put that in here. Nice. And then Laura, give me yours, and we'll put that on the top. And then the moon. And for those who are in the TN Tarot group, I will email a photo of this spread. Let me take a photo right now, actually. Hi. Okay, so let's see. Here's what we've got, and I'm curious of your interpretations. So for the next month, our four earthly messages are the Queen of Cups reversed, the Justice card upright, the World reversed, and the Two of Pentacles reversed. And then above these are all upright, the Hermit, Guan Yin, Rebirth or Judgment, Inanna, and the Moon, Morgan Le Fay. So the way that this spread works when you're looking at it is that there's the top three cards, and then each of those cards has two cards that are directly beneath it. So you interpret them like three triangles. So you're going to have overlapping interpretations of those bottom cards that show you the movement from one phase of being into another. I hope this makes sense. And when I send out the picture to those on the TN Tarot group, it'll probably make a lot more sense. But, you know, just for now, let's just take an interpretation. The Hermit, Guan Yin, above, you know, as the celestial or cosmic visionary guiding us through the reverse Queen of Cups and the Justice card. Anyone care to speak to any of the meanings of those cards? Curious about what your thoughts are, what your interpretations are. Anybody have any thoughts about message from the reverse Queen of Cups and the Justice card about our earthly lives and how that relates to the Hermit, Guan Yin? And if you have one, go ahead and unmute yourself and share. I don't want anybody to go ahead and unmute if you want to.
Well, the dead obvious one, of course, is the Justice with the upcoming election.
Yeah.
And with Kuan Yin being not only the hermit, but the goddess of compassion. And in this time of turmoil that we are going through, and the COVID and the riots and the protests and
Fire.
The threat of white supremacy and just everything, the chaos that is going on in our lives right now, with the upcoming of the ability to bring about justice, and how we can do that, not only by being out on the streets if you can't, being a person to help get out the vote. I see it as an opportunity for change.
Thank you, Lilith. Yes. Good. And anybody have anything they would add to that? Give a little wave or bring yourself off mute. Go ahead, Vanessa.
I was just thinking about the Queen of Cups when she's not in her best aspect.
Oop, all of a sudden I lost your audio. I could hear you and then I can't. Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, there you go. Okay, great.
Okay.
Start over.
All right. I was thinking about the Queen of Cups when she's not in her best aspect. She can go outward and get really involved and overly involved in the people that she loves lives, and be kind of emotionally manipulative and overspend, give more than what she has. And I was thinking about this idea of the goddess of compassion, how that would filter down into that. And it's like, I keep thinking about the collective and the individual right now, and the tension between those two things, and seeing people spend more than they have of their own energy and their own fight, and feeling like they have to do certain things or be certain ways, and kind of leaving that internal space. And when I think about the Hermit too, the Hermit's not soliciting followers or banging you over the head to make you interested. It's like, the message I take from it, especially for me, is tend to what needs tending to, and do what you really can, and find your energy where it really lives, and it will sustain you. It will generate itself. Don't try to force yourself into being any particular way, whether it's really like collective oriented or and also don't bury your head in the sand either if that's not what's true for you. Like do what you can where you can, and really be honest with yourself, because that's when you'll be most effective. So
create an earthly balance, you know, that we're being invited to create an earthly balance, you know, in that, with that Justice card and that Queen of Cups, and then with the Hermit saying, you know, self-care is important to this. And I see that too. I see some of what both of you described, Lilith and Vanessa. I read something, you know, if I hadn't read this morning itself, I might not have seen it this way, but I just saw something this morning that said that Ruth Bader Ginsburg went to work the day after her husband died. She went to work the day after she fell and broke 3 ribs, or had an accident and broke 3 ribs. She stayed working all the way through chemotherapy. She stayed working all the way through every difficult thing. And of course, you know, the woman had incredible fortitude. But also what I see here is that the fact is that still to this day, if women want to have justice, if we want there to be effective social change, we feel like we have to work so much harder than everyone else to get it. And the reality is we live in a white supremacist, sexist, heteropatriarchy where that's the truth. You want to be a woman and to get something done, you're going to have to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard, and you're not going to be allowed to complain about it. And if you take sick days, you'll be deemed weak, et cetera, et cetera. And you're expected to take care of your children and still take care of your partner and still go to work and still try to create social change. And what I see here in this is that a lot of us have felt like, you know, we pinned quite a lot of our hopes on Ruth Bader Ginsburg making it until the end of this year at least. A lot of us pinned a lot of our hopes for the future of justice on that woman. But the reality is she was never and can never be the one to carry that burden for us. We have to carry it amongst ourselves to some degree. And true justice resides in each of our hearts, in the discernments that we make when we're in our hermit state. If everyone swept their own porch, the whole world would be clean. If we are creating justice right here, that will have an impact in the wider world. And so it's my hope that over the next month, more people will internalize justice and not externalize it as like our patron saint Ruth Bader Ginsburg takes care of this for us, but that we'll internalize it in our action and our way of being, and that we'll recognize that justice doesn't mean we work ourselves literally to death. Yes, and so I'm just going to read a couple of the comments here. Sativa says, perfect, exactly what I'm working right in my life. Holding clear personal boundaries so you can balance your self-care and giving, and as well as service to others. And then Lilith says, she is the symbolic, but we are the realization of it. So that's how we become Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but it's also how we become Guan Yin. I love that interpretation. Thank you. Lilith.
I was thinking one more last little thing.
Sure.
That when we stay in check, and we're like using that kind of hermit principle to really look inward and be doing what we do for the true love and joy and inspiration of it. I think that's when we stay away from having performative social justice kind of stuff, because that's kind of the shadow, I think, of all of this. So
I think you're right. And I think that performative aspect and that kind of manipulative aspect is tidily summarized in that reverse Queen of Cups, which is like, oh, I just ache for something to change, but then still like not changing, still consuming a lot of petroleum products, etc. So I really see that too. Thank you for that, Vanessa. And now let's look at the second triplicate here, which is Judgment, or Inanna, rebirth, at the top as the cosmic message over the earthly realities of justice, upright, and a world reversed.
Chaos.
You can't make that up.
Right? You can't make this up, says Christine, and Anka chimes in, chaos. Yeah, I mean, we are in a world that's topsy-turvy right now. I think we all feel that way. I think most of us, if you're paying attention, you've noticed. And all of us yearning for the upright balance of justice, and remembering that justice in our group's interpretation today is all about discernment rather than punishment. We're not looking to get back at anyone. Real justice for, like, white supremacists, for example, doesn't necessarily involve us gleefully going after them and doing to them what they do to us. It involves us exercising discernment in the handling of them, but it doesn't mean that they won't have to answer for what they've done. In the myth of Inanna, there's a part that's not necessarily depicted here, but I think is very important. After Inanna is reborn, she goes back to the upper world that she left, and her partner has taken over her throne, and he is sitting on her throne, and he is ruling over the people, and he is, Dumuzi, and he is being kind of, little Mr. Bossy Boots, and feeling very satisfied in himself.
Yeah.
And Inanna is like, I promised my sister a replacement for me. I'm going to send you there. And so he does have to go and be hung on the hook of justice. And I think Inanna's mythos is very valuable for us all. And if you don't mind me saying so, I think it's particularly valuable for white women at this time. We have a lot of unaware privilege that has been locked in for over 150 years in this country, based on a myth of our frailty and need for protection. The myth that we are frail and require protection from Black men has been so saturated into the cultural paradigm that then it has caused the murder of innocent youth, the murder of men by police, the hangings and lynchings by mobs of people in the South. And so in this country, if white women are going to be part of this rebirth, I would venture to say part of our rebirth needs to be the awareness that we can't just cast off the responsibility for what we have been involved in and where white supremacy has benefited us. And at the same time, that doesn't mean hanging ourselves on a hook and pretending that we don't exist. It means facing it with a certain kind of balance and being willing to bring systems to an end, especially the psychological system of our mythological frailty. We are not frail, and we have agency, and we can say no, and we can create change. So for white women, that's one thing that I think the myth of Inanna might be very useful here. But I'm curious about other interpretations of this triad. Inanna above, the justice, and the world reversed. That's a daily occurrence. Yep. Anyway, go ahead. What do you think?
Does anybody else want to speak?
I will go after you, Lilith.
Okay, great. Lilith, then Kimberly, then Christine.
Inanna is, I have a relationship with Inanna, let's put it that way. And her story is so multifaceted, but it is about the journey into the underworld and out again. So it is about transformation, transcendence. But I love your interpretation of coming out through rebirth and seeing Dumuzi or Tammuz, whichever version you want, up there being what we would look at and recognize as the patriarchy. Mm-hmm. As someone going up and basically taking advantage of having power and abusing that power. And she comes up out of the underworld and goes, What are you doing to my people? Those are the words she uses. What are you doing to my people? And in her anger, she says, you know, you're going to go into the underworld and you're going to take my place. Well, he actually runs off to the steps and ends up having a nightmare dream where he abandons the land. And since he is vegetation, he is the land in embodiment. He sees that the land is then covered in drought. It dies. The land and the vegetation and the welfare of the people are in jeopardy. And it's through that he becomes empathic. And he wants to now save the people. But he's terrified of the underworld. He is absolutely terrified. So his sister literally comes to his rescue. They go down to Ereshkigal and say to Ereshkigal, we would like to bargain. My brother will be here for 6 months out of the year. I will take his place for 6 months of the year. And in the vegetation, in the growing community in the Middle East at that time, there were 2 seasons. There was the non-growing season, and which would have been the well, we here in California we call it the drought fire season. But and then there was the fertile growing season, which the sister was, and he was, when he went down into the underworld, he became like winter or the non-growing season. Talking about balance, to me that it is, yes, we, you know, having all this recognition that we are not helpless. And that justice is not necessarily punishment. So again, we come back to that theme and being about discernment rather than just pure punishment. And so I see for myself that in that bargain that they make with Ereshkigal, that is finding the balance or the discernment with what we need to do now in finding justice. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you so much. I didn't know about that myth, and you know, that further aspect of the myth, which really does make sense with the vegetative cycle that you're describing. And I do think there's something really interesting about that 2 seasons and the justice card here that says there's also seasons of change and then seasons of stability. And I think we're in a season of change, and everybody kind of complains like 2020. It's so funny, like, for years we've been like, everything needs to change, stuff needs to change, it needs to change. But now the changes are happening and we're sure unhappy about it. It's like everybody loves what is it? There's a funny meme that says like, everybody loves a strong woman until she's a witch and they're scared. And it's the case, like, we love this idea that change might somehow happen, but the reality of change necessitates this kind of primordial return to chaos before we can rebirth. All right, Kimberly, and then Christine. Go ahead. Kimberly next.
Hi, sweetheart. Okay, so just out of curiosity, out of thinking about the world reverse, right? For me means we can't go back to normal. This is the new normal. We can only move forward, right? And what's interesting too about Ereshkigal is that she is the law of the underworld. Oh yeah. Yeah, she is the law of the underworld, meaning there are consequences. There are consequences to the descent, and there's a negotiation and barter to the ascent, to the rise, right? And I think part of that too, with that justice card in there, justice is detached, right? Justice is not emotional. She just simply says, this is the law, this is the consequence to breaking that law. And how very interesting that as we get closer, you know, Trump, the administration, we more and more about breaking this law, breaking that law. Consequences are coming. And as we've had to face our own grief and sorrow, which also is Ereshkigal, right? We're working into the new normal.
Yes, I concur. I think we are, you know, it is this kind of like, you know, it's not, consequences are not punishment, I think is a really important takeaway here. Cause and effect is not necessarily punishment, even though cause and effect can be quite uncomfortable, can be quite difficult. It's not punishment. And that we do have to kind of face this, and that we are, I think we're all on our hook. This is 2020 is our hook. We're on it. You know,
we're wiggling on the hook.
we're wriggling on this hook. Well, how about you, Christine? What do you have to say? I'm going to turn it so you can see her.
Well, I think the hook, judgment is the hook in my mind, because we're all having to evaluate where we're at. But if you think about it, for me, the scales of justice are tipped at the moment. We're out of balance. Things are turning upside down. And when you have a rebirth, you have to clear away and fill the void of what just got cleared away. And we're in the birthing process. We're in the contraction
Yes.
birthing process.
And that primordial chaos of the world in reversal.
Yes.
It is a primordial chaos. I mean, we can't really take for granted almost anything. We can't take for granted that systems are going to stay stable. We can't take for granted that we're being told the truth. We can't take for granted that we are, going to have anything, go our way. And yet, at the same time, we can also remember that even if we can't take anything for granted in the chaotic world around us, we still have the agency of that hermit from our Guanyin at this, to bring with us into this rebirth. We each regulate. Self-regulation, as opposed to co-regulation. We're not really in a co-regulating space right now.
I think we have the ability to co-regulate in a different way.
Yes.
And it's a slow walk on a new journey that we don't know where we're going.
Yes, absolutely. And that totally resonates with our third celestial cosmic card, which is the moon, Morgan Le Fay, which for all of us here, I'm pretty sure, looking around, we're all magic women. So, and magical beings of whatever gender, I don't want to presume, but we're magic. And so for us, the new regulation isn't so much a regulation as it is a magical state in which we are dancing with the unknown, and which we experience balance while dancing with the unknown and potential for stability. And one of the things about that reversed Two of Pentacles is saying to me, so our third triplicate here is the moon, Morgan Le Fay, above the reversed world and the reversed Two of Pentacles. And I think we've really all come to a pretty clear agreement on that, what that reversed world card means. But my interpretation of the Two of Pentacles is about feeling like everything's all over the place and we don't know where it's going, but then we kind of just make it by the skin of our teeth. It just works out. And this card is reversed. And the fact of the matter is, with love, I say this, there are no guarantees that any of this is going to work out at all the way we want it to. But we, within this wild time of unknown and unknowable things, have our agency in our magic and in our capacity to dance with the mystery. So that if things are starting to fall apart and we don't know what to do, we are going to have to take the helm of our own magic and create our own systems of material, our own economy, our own systems of material support, our own systems of governance, our own systems of personal agency. And so we, the seers, prophetesses, and knowers, we, the magical beings who understand that the world around us does have malleability and that we can have agency in it regardless of how things might appear. I think we've got that Morgan Le Fay I will be a sorceress if I have to. I will be the midwife if I have to. I will steal under the cover of night if I have to. I will be that complex figure. You know, like Dr. Martin Luther King said, disobey unjust laws. You know, to be the person who is actively disobedient is Morgane Le Fay, as well as to be the, you know, luminous priestess helping, also Morgane Le Fay. It's not a simple thing, and we've lived in this world of kind of binary definitions of good and evil that have been sort of constructed for us, that we haven't had necessarily as much instruction in the discernment of when to enact certain behaviors, like when to be like, yeah, no, I would never tell a lie unless I was protecting someone from being picked up by secret police, for example. Like, I might be like, I would never tell a lie. But then if somebody were to come and be like, well, do you know something about so-and-so? I don't know, you know, like, I myself feel like the moral choice would be clear, even as I would be in defiance of what I thought were my morals. And I feel that these kinds of ethical questions and dilemmas are upon us now, where people are going to have to start choosing what they know to be true, despite what they may have previously thought was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, which is why we are seeing like Republican senators who are like, I'm getting ready to jump ship from this vote, or I'm going to try, you know, we are seeing some of that. I'd like us to see more of that. More people stepping away from ideologies in favor of stepping toward a healed reality. Any other thoughts? Yeah, go ahead, Vanessa.
So you're talking about a reverse Two of Pentacles card, right? And every time I see a Two of Pentacles and I see that kind of little figure eight with the two pentacles that locked into, very locked into this seesawing dance, I always think of those little cars on the tracks, those rides at like a theme park, and how they're just locked into a tractor beam and you're along for the ride, but the destination's already decided. And when I see that figure, I think of the systems that we are just kind of on the ride for that affect our home and affect our finances especially, and how these options have been laid out on a grid for us and we're just kind of always, you know, tightrope walking to get through those systems that are already made. So when I think about that card being reversed with the card that's on top of it, the Morgane Le Fay, I think of those systems. I almost can see that band just breaking.
Yes.
And it's like, these systems don't fly anymore. The security you thought was so secure and you thought you had your choices laid out, that menu is on fire. There's no more menu. There's no more like,
there's no more restaurant. Right.
Yeah. And it's a terrifying thing at first, but when you realize that you can define it, you can build your own systems. Oh my God, it's revolutionary, right? Like it's
exactly. I can think of off the top of my head like a dozen examples of what you're saying right now, Vanessa. Like, for example, if people want to put solar panels on their home, in certain areas they might be told, no, you can't. Why can't I? Because it's not done here. Why isn't it done here? The homeowners association says you can't. Why do they say you can't? It goes on and on and on, and it's just considered this given. Well, because it's in the handbook. I am ready to burn that handbook for sure. And things like, you know, when people come up to visit here in Dunsmuir and I tell them the water that runs out of the tap has been filtered underground in volcanic tubes for 100 years, 200 years, and actually doesn't have any fluoride or any treatment in it. You're drinking raw water. It just comes out of the tap that way. People can't believe that that's even possible because they're so used to chemicals and chlorine and fluoride and the system, and they're kind of just used to drinking whatever comes out of their tap uncritically instead of seeking it out. I can think of like building tiny houses and how in so many areas tiny houses are illegal, even though they're the most ecological and economical situation possible, or things like cob houses or straw bale. Those are things that are like really not bad for the earth, and yet they're blocked in so many places. So I concur, Vanessa, that our world that's turning topsy-turvy, it really means we have to question some of the things that we just thought of as automatic. Like, I get my power from the power company. I get my food from the grocery store. I get my water from whatever comes out of the tap. And that instead of being afraid of those potentials and desperately clinging to them, we have to start thinking with some agency about who are our water people, and where will we get the, solar power, and where will we grow our food, and how will we do it differently. Thank you, everybody, for these really juicy interpretations of these cards today. I've been so grateful for your input. So, go ahead, Anka. Yeah.
So as you were all speaking, we were just talking, I was thinking about, if you're familiar with human design,
Mm-hmm.
Ra, the guy of human design, had forecast that in 2027, we have a new operating system coming in, like the background frequency is changing from a one being like being told what to do, having institutions in place, that
Hierarchy.
hierarchy, religion, churches, everything that is telling the people what to do, and that's a one, and the frequency is changing to a 6. So I was thinking that the cards are saying, and the 6 frequency is the individual. I have to figure this out for myself. I need to do these things. Don't tell me what to do anymore. Don't tell me. All of this is going to fall away, and it's going to be chaotic, very chaotic for people who need to be told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the cards are kind of already saying, get your shit in order, figure out what your inner authority is. You need to know your operating system, because when the shit hits the fan, you need to have your own agency. You need to know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're going to do it with, wisdom, justice, and compassion, because the operating frequency is still love, but the exchange isn't going to be, what can I do for you and what can you do for me? It's going to be, because I love you, I want to do it.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm too busy. I'm too busy taking care of
Right. Oh, wow. So there is this kind of we all have to get a little stronger.
Yeah,
and a little more resourceful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's what the cards are saying too. Like,
Well,
the
that's
world
hermit.
is coming upside down, and the frequency is going to change, and it'll feel like, if you're not prepared, it'll feel like, oh my fucking God, what just happened? Nothing is as it is anymore. And then you're going to have to know how you operate, like where you make your decisions from, not your mind.
Right. What are my principles, and who am I really, as opposed to who I've been told to be, and maybe who I've been sort of the suit of me that I've been wearing in the world.
Because most people are trying to operate the way the world has been conditioning them to operate. And he's saying that's changing, and you're not going to operate like that anymore. So you need to know how you truly, what's your operating system.
Maybe not what, but why.
The what, and maybe both.
In the human design system, the body is a vehicle. The consciousness of Yesha's consciousness is in a vehicle of her body. And the body
currently
has a system of how it runs. So I don't know what your system is, because I didn't do the astrological, but you're either a manifestor, a generator, a projector.
I'm the same one as you.
You're
a projector.
So you have to wait for the invitation. But the world is changing. Well, I don't want to detract from the tarot, but it's going to be a projector world, because we see the big picture. And so we're going to be able to tell the generators, because the generators
will then make it happen.
What to do. So they need to be told, you do this, you do this, you do this. That's how you're going to get your community
so
together.
People have a sense of, everyone can have a sense of purpose.
Yes.
Even if they're not all doing it the same way or doing the same tasks.
Right. Yes.
Really fascinating. Well, we'll all have to look out for 2027. I'm hoping to upgrade my operating system from running on Ben & Jerry's to running on more vegetables. That would be one particular upgrade we can do. And everybody, This has been our September Tea and Tarot. Thank you so much for coming. What a fun time today. I'm going to really look forward to next month. A little news. I have been working on something special, and it is an app called Goddess Temple. And in this app, it's like a social networking site like Facebook, but it's all goddess oriented and women oriented. And so I will be launching this next month, and we will continue to do our classes and our gatherings. And I hope that you will come and join me over there in the Goddess Temple app, so that we can kind of start a different operating system already that doesn't have as much toxicity as some of our other social networking sites have come to have. I'm sending you all a lot of love and good luck and good health and well-being and safety as we go through this next month. And I will see you all again on the 4th Saturday of October. Take care, and I'll be posting the link to the video as soon as I have it uploaded. 2 of the videos, there's going to be 2 of them. All right, bye y'all. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you, Yasha.
Thanks.
Thank you.